Let's start with the expectations here. Going into this with the polls, at least it seems like it is very, very neck and neck among not one, not two, but three parties.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much correct. This is, in all the years that I've been watching Pakistan, I think this is one of the closest election races I can remember. I think there are really two main parties that are competing here. One is the incumbent party, the PMLN party, and then there's the PTI party led by Imran Khan, of course, the cricketer turned politician. And I think it's really going to come down to which one of them wins it. They both have their strongholds in the province known as Punjab, which is the biggest province in Pakistan. So essentially, if you win Punjab, you win the election, and they're both battling it out there. They both have their strongholds there. So it's really going to come down to the wire. It'll be quite close, I assume.
When it comes to U.S. relations, when it also comes to China relations, is there one person over the other that would push the country towards both of them, or perhaps if you can define either way?
Yeah, I would actually argue the way that the political dynamics work in Pakistan, the election won't necessarily have much of an impact on Pakistan's relations with the U.S. or with China, and that's because in Pakistan, the army is the most powerful player. It plays a very big political role, and it actually manages foreign policy toward the U.S. and China. And of course, the army is not going anywhere. So regardless of the civilians in charge after the election, the army will still be there calling the shots. Though I would argue that the Imran Khan's part of the PTI has taken a bit of a different approach. Imran Khan has been particularly critical of the United States on the campaign trail. He once threatened to shoot down U.S. drone strikes, shoot down U.S. drones if he were in power. So, that could be interesting if he were to lead the government. But, again, typically the civilians, they defer to the military when it comes to foreign policy considerations.
Having said that, then, this is at a time when foreign investors are looking at EM with a little bit of nervousness. Do you think that there is actually a clear winner here that could actually ensure a stable government?
Well, no. Unfortunately, the dynamics of Pakistan being that I think whatever happens in this election, it's going to be a close fight. And I think that whichever party emerges the victor will not have an absolute majority, meaning it will need to form a coalition, a governing coalition, which will probably be very fractious, probably quite weak. So I think we're looking into what will probably be a period of significant volatility in the political context. Now, of course, this ends up being a good thing for the military, which is able to use its influence when it comes to a weaker government. But I think in Pakistan, the view is that it's the army, not the civilians, that would try to promote, to bring about the right conditions to allow things to stabilize and allow for more investment. The security situation has actually stabilized in Pakistan over the last few years. Terrorist violence is down significantly over the last few years, though you have had a rash of attacks on political candidates over the last few weeks. But generally speaking, the security situation has improved in the country.
You hear about this economic crisis that Pakistan faces right now, Michael. I mean, they've devalued their currency 4 times. The current account deficits continue to balloon. What do you think the new government needs to prioritize when it comes to the economy? And is it as bad as it looks right now?
Oh, I think it is bad. Pakistan is facing a looming economic crisis. I mean, let's be very clear about that. And I think that the first big, difficult decision for the next government will be what to do about this economic crisis, with these falling reserves and this balance of payments crisis. It'll need to decide, the new government, if it goes to the IMF for another loan. This is what Pakistan tends to do when it faces these types of problems. It's been 5 years since Pakistan last went to the IMF. I think that it may end up doing that, whatever government is in control. The risk there is that could aggravate China, because, as you know, there's all these loans coming in from China as part of this China-Pakistan economic corridor. An IMF program would mean that Pakistan would need to be more transparent about its transactions and the various financial contracts it has. And, the China-Pakistan economic corridor is extremely opaque, and I think China and Pakistan like it that way. So there's a big trade-off here, and it'll be a very difficult decision for the next government, though I do think that the next government will indeed go to the IMF.
Actually, speaking on that, in terms of the possibility of that, how much do you think they're going to need here, Michael, moving ahead? And what's the likelihood that they're going to get it?
Well, it's hard to come down to the numbers, but the bottom line is that Pakistan's debt is rising, really at alarming levels. And in some ways, it's surprising that China had to know this was coming. I mean, Pakistan is one of a number of countries that China is investing in as part of this Belt and Road Initiative, where you're dealing with countries that lack the absorptive capacity to sustain and maintain these types of investments. So, I think what we could see happen is where Pakistan actually asked China for another loan, for some sort of bailout. Now, that's happened before. If that were to happen now, I'm not sure China would want to go there because of the precedent that it could set. But I think that's what Pakistan could be looking at. I mean, either way, it's going to be trying to apply band-aids to a broader problem. But, given how important this China-Pakistan economic corridor is to both Pakistan and China, I think both countries will want to do what they can to try to smooth things over and move forward however possible.
Michael, why do you think relations between Pakistan and China are so strong? I mean, China has basically had hostile relations with pretty much all of its neighbors. What makes this relationship so unique?
Well, I mean, this is a relationship that's been deep and strong for many years. Essentially, Pakistan looks to China as a foil to push back against India, Pakistan's enemy. This is a particularly important relationship right now for Pakistan, given that its relationship with the U.S. is really falling apart. And so Pakistan really has few very powerful friends. Saudi Arabia is one of the only other key powerful friends of Pakistan. And so I think Pakistan will want to do whatever is possible to maintain this relationship. And CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, really solidifies this deep partnership between the two countries. Though I will say that to the extent that this China-Pakistan Economic Corridor continues to face challenges, if China continues to worry about Pakistan not being able to pay back the loans, that could have an effect on the broader relationship. Not that it's going to fall apart, but it could face some modest tensions that'll have to be smoothed over in the coming months.
Right. Could it be more at risk if it is Imran Khan, that the opposition leader, that wins? He hasn't exactly ruled out re-examining some of these loans when it comes to Belt and Road.
Well, you're right. I mean, I'd say there's a deep political consensus across the board in Pakistan for a deep relationship with China. So whoever's heading the new government is going to want to continue working with China in a big way. But you're right. As you say, Imran Khan has suggested the need to look into some of these loans, which would be very interesting. I'm not sure what China would think about that. But then again, many times a politician on the campaign trail will say something, and once he or she moves into an actual position of power, a lot of times that messaging is refined or changes altogether. So I wouldn't necessarily hold him to that. It would certainly go to his theme of focusing on anti-corruption and transparency. It's been a big theme of his for years. But I don't really know if he would actually go in that direction when push comes to shove and he's in the government.